Browns introducing their new defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, today. He returns to this facility behind us. Of course, this is where his NFL career started under Bill Belichick all the way back in the early 90s. Mary Kay, your takeaway today from what you heard from Jim Schwartz.
Well, I think the most important thing about this defense and about this hire is trying to pull these guys together, getting them to play together, and kind of eliminating some of the discipline issues that they had last season. So when he talked about holding his best players accountable, most accountable, I thought, that was the one thing that really stood out in my mind, that a lot of the stuff that went on last season, he won't be tolerating that, and he's going to make sure that the stars shine in the right way.
Yeah, he definitely made a point of that as he spoke. Ashley, what did you take away from this?
Yeah, I think my biggest thing is he came up there, I thought, and said all of the right things, right? Like, he really sounded like a coach and like somebody who's going to change the culture of this defense. But I think even you kind of got this tone from him, and it's kind of, I think, what we all expect is you have to actually see what's going to happen on the field now and see the results of this. But the first impression, I think, was about as good of a first impression as you could make.
And for me, it was just, talking about how Myles Garrett can thrive in this and how he had multiple double-digit sack players in Philadelphia. We all remember how great that defensive line was. A lot of good defensive tackle play on that line. We didn't get a chance to get into that today, but I'm sure it will come up at some point. But this is a chance for Myles Garrett and that defensive line to really thrive. And Mary Kay, I think just this whole thing being about Myles Garrett and kind of centered around Myles Garrett. He even made a Calvin Johnson comparison when talking about Myles Garrett. I thought that was important.
Yeah, I mean, he knows that is the superstar of the defense. He knows that he's got to make sure that Myles looks good, that he flourishes in this wide nine scheme of his, that they scheme it up the way they need to, that they support him with probably a new defensive tackle and a new number 2 edge. So he says, the bar is going to be set really, really high on that defensive line. That's what he's going to be all about.
And Ashley, I mean, it really does. It starts with Myles, but also the rest of that line needs to be built up. And I'm curious how much sway Jim is going to have in the personnel kind of putting this whole thing together.
Yeah, because you think they at least need one more edge rusher now that Jadeveon Clowney's going. I think we would all advocate they need 2 guys, really. It depends on how much you want to depend on Alex Wright. And, of course, the defensive tackles for the second year really just underperformed in that spot. So I think, like Lance said on the podcast, Lance Riesland, like, it can give your stars a spotlight, but it also will highlight these vulnerabilities that the Browns had problems with this past year if I think the personnel stays the same.
All right, Jim Schwartz back in Berea. What is it, 30 years since he was taking people back and forth from the airport here, starting his career out unpaid for his first year here. He's back running the defense, trying to get this thing turned around. We'll have full coverage of everything he talked about today, all at cleveland.com/Browns.